Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
And welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the honor and the pleasure of having Gregg Goldfarb, a personal injury lawyer who's been practicing out of Southern Florida for over 25 years. He's handled all types of claims, whistleblower litigation, mass tort claims, accidents, PIP claims, civil rights, help with disabled community for 15 years, past president of South Florida Center of Independent Living, went to UVA, Wahoo's, and got his law degree from the Miami Hurricanes. All right. And listen, it's a pleasure. You had me on your podcast several weeks ago, and I enjoyed it. And I want to talk to you. You're down in Florida, man. So a lot of stuff going on down there. What's going on? What's I hear so many things. I have lawyers that are coming to me. We don't know how to do these cases anymore. They're taking the medicals now. We can't claim the medical bills. What's
going on in Florida is insurance and getting hit with hurricanes. That's no insurance company wants to write insurance, to cover those kind of losses. So the Florida legislature has decided that the way to deal with that is to basically, deny consumers the ability to hire lawyers. So, their position is that, somebody with a $500 property damage claim hires an attorney. The attorney gets attorney's fees of $20,000. The insurance company is carrying on. But, Ken, that if you don't level the playing field with insurance companies, they're just going to deny every claim and take advantage of the consumer and collect premiums and make a windfall. So, in Florida, I think they did an overreach. We do have a major problem with, covering losses for hurricanes, but they went well beyond that. They changed basically the entirety of personal injury law. They don't normally, we evolved over time into what they call a comparative fault state, where if you maybe are part to blame and somebody else caused your injury, you could still sue that person for effectively what percentage of fault they were at in causing your injury. Now they've basically said, well, if you are 50% or more to blame, you can't sue anybody else. And that's very unfair. And I think over the course of time, that's the old days, and some states still have that, contributory negligence, but that proved to be really just a major disservice to a lot of people that were, listen, you can make a small mistake, you go in front of a jury, they don't like you, they could say you're to blame. And meanwhile, somebody else gets off scot-free. So that's number one. Number two is they've basically gotten rid of the attorney's fees on first-party insurance claims. So you have a lot of small first-party insurance claims. No attorney's going to take that on a contingency fee basis. So that just invites the insurance companies to deny everything. Property damage, PIP, which is sort of a Florida, special law, and, to help healthcare providers get their bills paid for when they're treating auto accident patients. So all of a sudden now, it's not just the plaintiffs. They were, the legislators were upset with plaintiffs' lawyers getting all these high attorney's fees. But the reality is they're going to write a lot of people out of business, both plaintiffs' attorneys, defense counsel, right? Because if we're not filing cases, there's no defendants and there's no defense counsel. And the consumers are really the ones that it'll take some time, but eventually the consumers are going to realize that they got shafted on this law. So sorry for the long-winded.
No, that's all right. Yeah, my understanding is now that it's not what bills incurred, it's what the value, what Medicare would have paid plus 20% or Medicare.
Yeah, and that as well. So if you have a medical bill of $100,000, but the insurance has a contract and they end up only paying 40,000, you can't say to the jury, I had $100,000 of medical bills. Well, you did have 100,000, but due to the nuances of insurance or Medicaid or Medicare, that bill got knocked down. Well, that was the doctor's bill. And, in some respects, that's what your medical bills were. But now we have to tell the jury, essentially a fabrication, as far as I'm concerned, that your medical bills weren't really nearly as high as what they really were. Essentially, the result is that the jury won't think you were that injured as your medical bills really reflect.
Right. Damn. So what are lawyers? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, what are lawyers? What are they to do in Florida?
So, we've gotten together. We have in Florida, the judges run for their position, their judgeship. So there's a lot of campaigns that are funded by the lawyers. We get together and we promote the judge that we like. So what we do now is we get together and we cry. We just cry. What are we going to do? So some people have got good ideas. Other people, listen, you get out of law school, Ken, you get a job, whatever that employer wants you to do, you get pigeonholed. That's what you become. And a lot of lawyers, their DNA is like, listen, I am not going to go outside my specialty because I don't want to make a mistake. And they're terrified of making a mistake. And well, all right, that's great if you can have a whole career doing one line of work. But the reality is, in today's world, things changing, legislation, I mean, just so many things are going on that I think a lot of lawyers are fooling themselves. So a lot of my colleagues in the PIP world are really, despondent. They just don't know what. Some of them are retiring. Some of them are going to go try to build up a personal injury practice. Good luck with that when you got, Rubenstein and Morgan, they're dominating these areas. I don't know if that's good or not. I guess some of these attorneys are going to try to get a job with operations like that. And, it's hard to get a job as an attorney once you're really good and you have 10 years experience, nobody wants to hire you. It's only when you just graduated law school that they want to hire you and, take advantage of you and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, I think it comes, it's just like when COVID hit. I think you've got to not throw your arms up. I think you got to pivot. You got to figure out. You got to adapt to the changes around you. Because, like you saying, just sitting around crying about it's not going to change it. You got to, whatever it might be. It might be like you said, go into another practice area. Because really, sooner or later, there's going to be a lot less car wrecks or bad ones.
Yeah.
Because the cars are getting so safe. I don't think they're going to stop, but they're going to get more and more. The cars are getting better built, safer, which is a good thing for consumers. But it's probably bad for PI lawyers because as far as automobile accidents, which make up probably 75% of personal injury claims, are going to be, there's just not going to be as many of them are as bigger claims. I don't think. I don't know what your take is on that, but I've been saying that for the last 3 or 4 years. I don't think it's going to stop. I don't think driverless cars is going to be the deal and all this stuff. I'm not worried about that. I just think cars are so much safer.
Well, I mean, you only and the sad. Well, I wouldn't say it's the sad reality, but I think the reality is, as much as the plaintiffs' lawyers get crucified by the public about what we do, the reality is the cars are safer in part. I'm not going to take all the credit, but largely in part to really good product mass tort attorneys that roll over cases. Listen, Ken, I got 4 fingers. Why do I have 4 fingers? Because I was in one of the first SUVs and my girlfriend was driving it and got off, turned off the ramp and we just rolled over and, it's a horrible accident. I lost a finger. Well, these days the SUVs are much safer because of lawsuits. They've gotten hit really hard. The manufacturers knew they could have made these cars a lot safer and you got to hit them in the pocket and that helped. And so that's just one example, I think, of, cars being almost every car now is really manufactured very safely. And, which is good for the consumer, is good for all of us. But
yeah. No doubt. Talk to me about mass torts. You've got a podcast that you, what's the name of the podcast?
It's called Cut to the Chase with a colon at the end.
Cut to the, okay.
Cut to the chase. You know, I'm sure you've listened to a lot of podcasts where the first 5 minutes, they're just, you know, talking about what they had for breakfast. So, you know, I decided on my podcast, I was going to, you know, none of that. No, I'm not the kind of person that is big with the pleasantries and all that. I like to, let's just, you know, their audience wants to hear, you know, but whatever the topic is, hopefully that we're going to get there right out of the gate. So my line of work, the PIP industry, one of my lines of work has always been under pressure from the legislator. They've always thought there was way too much fraud and, you know, staged accidents. And so there's always been discussion about getting rid of the statute that enables PIP. At one point, the legislators actually passed legislation to get rid of it, and then the governor vetoed it. So every year has been like, we all get together, my colleagues, we, you know, celebrate the end of May when, you know, PIP survived. But I've always known that the handwriting was on the wall. So a couple of years ago, I had been, you know, sort of doing a little bit of mass torts, but not mass. I would do, you know, one fen case, a Vioxx case, a hip replacement. I usually coordinate or get involved with Brian Ailstock's firm up in Pensacola. And so I had a hip case, it got settled, they called me up, they wanted me to talk to the client that I sent their way. And one of their attorneys said, listen, did you hear about the 3M earplug case? And I was already ready. I was like chomping at the bit to expand my practice, to move into something else, to move into something interesting and maybe a little bit more complicated than your ordinary automobile accident or slip and fall or healthcare collection case. And so, you know, I remember when they were telling me the 3M earplug, I was trying to act like I knew what I was doing. So I'm on the, you know, computer Googling 3M earplug, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I know all about that. I want to get into that. So they kind of showed me how to market for the mass tort cases in a way where I wasn't going to be handling a large volume. I wasn't going to be handling phone calls. It was just me passively getting in and seeing how it unfolds. And that's what I wanted. That would help me ease my anxiety about transitioning into some cases can be 7-8 figures. Why am I going to do something that I'm really not that comfortable with? So I teamed up with them. And then I saw that I liked it, and I got to know some people, and I decided, let me do a podcast where I'm actually interviewing the attorneys. All these cases, you know, they're like major public interest cases. It's environmental contamination, the forever chemicals, the water supply, you know, massive sexual abuse in the church, massive sexual abuse in the Boy Scout. I mean, who would have ever thought that you would see a rash of sexual abuse by priests, by Boy Scout leaders, of all things? So as things were unfolding, and I was seeing more and more of how corporate America and pharma was really polluting and polluting the planet, killing people and all that, I said, wow, this is really interesting. And so I started to get more involved in these cases, and I got to know the marketers, the vendors, people like you. And, you know, it's 2.5 years later, and I'm knee deep into it now. So, you know,
So if I'm a lawyer and I've got a, you know, PI practice, but I really want to, you know, maybe branch out and go into some, you know, mass torts or dip my toe into it. I mean, how do you know, number one, which one to pick? Because there's, you know, I go to these mass torts made perfect, and there's at least 15 or 20 deals going on all the time. Different drugs, different claims, different torts going on.
So yeah, some cases are just starting. So typically those are less expensive to market for and to acquire. And marketing today is much different than it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. I think people out there might not understand. It's not just putting a bus bench or, you know, running, you know, a slot on TV or whatever. It's a much more integrated product between the call centers. You know, if you drop some big money on a marketing campaign, you better make sure that either you're answering the phone and you're answering it properly, which you do a great job of educating lawyers how many cases they're losing when they don't answer the phone quickly, they don't return the call quickly, their people don't even know how to spell the name of their website. All these basic things, you get disqualified. You don't even realize what's going on.
Yeah.
So you got the new cases that are less expensive, but they're going to take longer, and there's more risk. They could get thrown out at a Daubert hearing or some kind of motion for summary judgment.
Like Zantac.
Like Zantac. Everybody was very excited about Zantac. Product gets removed, the FDA. How much more do you need than that for a judge to let it go to the jury? I mean, I'm still scratching my head about that ruling. And I think a lot of attorneys are doing that. But if you get past Daubert and you start some trials, then all of a sudden it's like a risk reward. All of a sudden you say, hey, we got past Daubert. Now we're trying cases. Guess what? The marketing gets more expensive because it's more likely. If you all of a sudden find out, hey, Roundup is getting settled, there's a good chance you can still get cases, but they're going to be more expensive. So
they are. I can tell you from personal experience. The first Roundup was $1,700 a case. The last Roundup was $4,000 a case.
Yeah. And you hear such conflicting information. Are they settling it? Are they settling it with some law firms? They're not settling it. They're winning. Now they're winning their trials. So, at first, Brett Wisner was whooping butt on them. And now, the tables have turned, but I still hear that they're settling them. So it's, like the mass tort world, if you're an attorney out there, first of all, you got to listen to what my mother told me. My mother always told me, it takes money to make money. So, instead of spending all that money on a boat, you got a big verdict, you got a $300,000 verdict, and all you've been angling about your whole life is to get that 27-foot Commodore. Guess what? Don't do it. Instead, take that money, invest it, and you can invest it. The best investment, I say, is always in yourself. So you invest it in yourself. Hey, what am I going to do? I'm going to expand my practice. I'm going to diversify. I'm going to get into the mass torts, or you get into motorcycle cases. Those sound pretty exciting, but they're expensive, and you got to be able to hold out. They're not quick. You're not marketing, getting a case and getting money. I mean, that's not typically what happens. So I like to think of it like a stock portfolio. I don't want all my money in Roundup, because if Roundup goes south, that's not good if all your cases are there. So you got to have a little Roundup, a little Camp Lejeune, a little 3M. Well, there's many 3M cases, unfortunately. And the Johnson & Johnson bankruptcy with the baby powder.
What's going on in that? Because, I've heard it was settled, and then I heard other lawyers say, well, it's not settled. We agreed to it,
That is the biggest story, I think, going on right now. And I just actually ate lunch with a bankruptcy attorney, not somebody that deals with mass tort cases or whatever, but she's amazed at how these mass torts have now morphed into bankruptcy matters. And so, there's almost, I don't want to declare that there's infighting amongst the plaintiffs' attorneys on, what should we do? Johnson & Johnson, after fighting 10 years, has ponied up $9 billion to settle the whole lot. All right. A lot of people have died. The ladies that took baby powder, got ovarian cancer and mesothelioma, filed their cases 10 years ago. There's a lot of them that are no longer here, unfortunately. So a lot of lawyers are like, wow, Johnson & Johnson is willing to go to bat. They got so much money, they could fight us till the end of time. So, do we want to go down that route? Do we want to reject this bankruptcy offer and try to somehow or another take an appeal? They already took one appeal, they won it. And then they filed 2 hours and 11 minutes after the bankruptcy court threw out Johnson & Johnson's first effort to go file for bankruptcy with their Texas two-step. 2 hours and 11 minutes later, they filed another one. They just changed up the funding agreement, and they're claiming that 60% of the plaintiffs are willing to go for the deal. That was a little bit disingenuous. It was more like lawyers that represented 60% of the plaintiffs have effectively told Johnson & Johnson they will recommend it to their clients. That's my understanding. So is it going to stay in the bankruptcy court? Are they going to file another appeal and delay this? Right now, there's been a temporary injunction against trials. so they can't have any trials. Some people are ready for trial. Some people are like at the end of their life. They were set for trial a year ago. They want to go to trial. And so, the temporary injunction is no trials, but new cases can get filed for 2 more months. And then there's going to be another hearing. So it's a very tricky thing for the plaintiff's attorneys who are trying to serve their clients what to do. We don't want, a lot of the plaintiff's lawyers do not want these mass torts to go through the bankruptcy court because we lose all of our leverage. The right to a jury trial, constitutional right, that's what we want. We know we can get, there's a much greater chance of getting fair compensation that route than if we go to a bankruptcy and we're dealing with the trustee who's like, okay, you get nothing and you get $10 and the lawyers get, a big bounty and that's the end of the story, right? That's what we're that's the fear, is that becomes the, hey, we're going to try a couple of cases, see if that works. If that doesn't, we'll just do this Texas two-step nonsense and file for bankruptcy. That seems to be the playbook, and that's what the fear is. But on the other side, people are getting tired of 10-year litigation.
Yeah, that's the other thing about mass torts. It can be very lucrative, but you've got to wait. I mean, anywhere from 4 to, I guess, 10 years. I mean,
Maybe.
But when it hits, most of the time it's very lucrative. I mean, the ones I've invested in, and the deal is lawyers think that they've got to handle them themselves, but most lawyers now will pay these, if you give them enough cases, they'll pay you anywhere from 40 to 50% referral.
Yeah.
Aren't you finding that?
Yep, I certainly am. And I've heard some people, I won't name names, that'll even do better. But I think that a lot of those firms are not filing their cases. They just sign the clients up, get the medical records and wait for the settlement. And then, so what did they really do that you couldn't have done?
Well, that's true too.
My
old firm, my partner after I led, he was taking them in with just from organic marketing and putting, I started putting the ad every 5th one when we were doing TV ads for different campaigns for like 6 weeks. We would get the medical records in and then hold them and then wait till it got to where it was getting ready to settle. And then we could find a lawyer that would do it for like 20%, 25%, because he just put them in with his cases. And, it really didn't cost him anything. It was just extra money for him, and gave us more bargaining power because we joined, like merged our cases. I've heard of lawyers doing that too. I mean, our old firm, Ben, he does that sometimes. And then you got people like me who are not practicing anymore, and I just go out and find these different marketing companies and find good lawyers that know what they're doing, is on the committee, steering committees, and that got a good reputation for paying off, and work out a deal, and then just send the cases to them and let them deal with it. To me, it's like passive income, to be honest with you.
I love it. Listen, if you're an attorney, why not get some passive income? Why not take some of your earnings and say, hey, you could invest in a stock and you're hoping for a 10% return, right? Or a 20% return, or maybe in 7 years, the whole traditional model is in 7 years, you could double your money if you pick a good stock. Well, you could get a 10-fold return on a mass tort case in 3 years, if you pick the right one.
Yeah.
You do it the right way.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not pretty much 4 to 7, 8 time return over, 4 to 6 years is what I'm saying. Yeah. So do you help lawyers with this stuff? Because here's what I'm finding, Greg, is that most lawyers don't know where to start, don't know how to pick them, don't know the lawyers to trust. I mean, because you've got a podcast, so I guess you got a passion for this.
I do. Actually, I do. And so, one of the ways that I've actually diversified my practice is I talk to my colleagues that, are like, woe is me, or, maybe they made a big hit on a case. Maybe I work with them and we're making a lot of money on a certain project. And I explained to them, hey, you can get a great return on this. And I said, you could either try to learn how to do it yourself, or you could have me connect you to all the players. And so I do that. I probably have about 5 law firms at the present time that I've gotten into: 3M, Camp Lejeune. And interestingly, I'm sure you're aware this, the state of Arizona has basically allows non-lawyers to partner up with lawyers on either like in a law firm or as a joint venture. So I have had some, money people that want to get into Camp Lejeune, and they couldn't believe it. And I basically set them up with the Arizona firm and the marketer and the call center, the whole 9 yards. They just sent money, signed an agreement, and that's, and now they're fired up because some people are dying to be lawyers. They just never became a lawyer.
Yeah.
And now this is their chance. They're actually, effectively like co-counseling, the Camp Lejeune. By the way, the Camp Lejeune, when you talk about things taking a long time, a lot of people think the Camp Lejeune is not going to take in a long time in the mass tort world, maybe 2 to 3 years. Why? The government has effectively said they're to blame. They did it. So they're not going to really be fighting and taking appeals. This is more like an administration of a fund. They've already ponied up a bunch of money. They've already said the types of cancers that this is causing, water contamination. Water contamination is just going to be the topic du jour for, with the firefighting foam, the Camp Lejeune. People are going to realize that they have these forever chemicals in themselves. When it rains these forever chemicals. And this is all caused, not all, but primarily caused by products that companies like 3M and DuPont have created. When you think about a forever chemical, that's what they wanted to create. Unfortunately, it causes cancer and all that. So going back to the Camp Lejeune, I love that campaign. And so I've gotten some people that are non-lawyers into these cases through the Arizona operation. So I sort of, over the course of my 2.5 years, interviewing people like you and all the other players in the mass tort world, learn how to put the whole piece together, soup to nuts. It's like a little turnkey operation. So, my friends, they get some money, they want to spend some money, they want to diversify. They realize their PIP practices going into the toilet. They're calling me up now and saying, hey, how do you get me into the stuff? And it's very easy.
Yeah. Good deal. So what is your top 3 right now? If you were going to invest money or go out and start marketing, what would be your top 3 mass torts?
I mean, I think you got to drop it in, you got to go into the Johnson & Johnson baby powder. Number one, a lot of people are still, it's a it's a slowly developing cancer. So people are going to be developing ovarian cancer. People have been using baby powder. Who would think baby powder could cause cancer? But, it has asbestos in it. That's the way it's mined and gets contaminated. So I love the Johnson & Johnson because they've already ponied up money. I love the Camp Lejeune because they're not really going to fight it. The fight is really going to be them, I think, the government figuring out how to handle all these cases and how to make sure that they pay properly. But we, the plaintiffs' lawyers and the mass torts, we've done this so many times. I think invariably we're going to basically show them, hey, here's the system to use to figure out the matrix and all that. So I love those 2 cases definitely the most. Sex abuse, if you can find them, are great cases. They're really good cases. The people really have been violated. It's really messed their lives up. And apparently, it's just happened, anytime you open up the newspaper, there's another diocese or another institution. It could be a public school. It could be whatever. I love those. I don't love those cases, but I like those cases, for financial reasons.
Right. Yeah. So what do you think about this new eye drop deal? What's it called? Ezra Care?
I just started to look at it. To me, the mechanism of an eye drop causing this injury, I always like to look at things like, okay, let's pretend like you're on the jury. Walk me through all right, like Roundup, you're spraying this stuff. It kills weeds. Weeds are so hard to kill. that doesn't sound too hard to convince me that if this stuff is going all over me, it's going to mess me up too. If I'm sitting out there, I'm a farmer or whatever, paraquat, same thing, right? So but some things, to prove something causes cancer can be difficult, because a lot of things could cause cancer.
Right.
So, you got to show there was no family history, that you use the product a lot and all that. But the eye drop, I kind of like that because, you're just dropping something into your eye. So I could see as a jury that they would, that it's easy for them to wrap their brain around. Now, you always have to say to yourself, who's the defendant? Can they handle the financial? How many people are affected? What's the population? What's the average payout going to be? And can they handle it? And are they like Johnson & Johnson is very savvy litigation. They've been getting sued up the wazoo for decades. So they know how to handle things better than some other companies. But, I'm going to dig into that a little deeper. I know the interesting thing, I guess, and you probably have the same thing. I get inundated with emails from marketers about the latest campaign, right? So I got 2 today on that one, right? And I also think one of the funny and interesting things that I've seen is that a lot of lawyers now are becoming marketers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like almost like, I mean, do you call yourself a marketer?
I don't know. I think more. I am a marketer. I mean, I am. But I mean, I'm not a done for you marketer. I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it for you. I'll tell you how to do it, show you how to do it, but you got to go do it. I'm not going to do it for you. That's my deal. If I'm going to do that harder work, then I'm going to do it for myself and make the big money.
Yeah. Well, see, when you say the big money, I'm like, I don't know that I actually grasp the extent of that.
That's all relative. It is. These mass tort guys make some of them just really, really, really rich.
But they spend it too.
Yeah.
We go to these conferences and, somebody's like renting a whole room in Caesar's Palace and putting, it's like you just dropped $100,000 on that,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you're crying to me, you got no money. I'm like, I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, good deal. So listen, people want to get up with you, talk to you about this mass tort stuff. What's a good way to get up with you, Greg? All
right. So 305, I'm going to give you my cell. I know, it's always tricky to do that. 305-803-6084. You can go to my website, which is my name.com, GreggGoldfarb.com. I'm the original 3G, Gregg, and then there's Goldfarb. So I was the original 3G and the original 4G.
I love it.
So I don't know. What do you like better, the triple G or 4G?
I like triple G.
Yeah, triple G.
Got more of a good sound to it.
Yeah. So those would be the two, best ways to read your show notes also.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for being with us today. And hopefully we'll cross paths soon.
We will, Ken. Thank you for having me on. It's been an honor just to get to know you. And we'll be in touch, all right?
All right, my friend. You take care. Okay. And until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.